Hold on when we get to it here.
All right. And we're
Good morning. The Finance Committee is called to order. I have 10:31 a.m. on Thursday, March 23rd. We have Alderwoman O'Neill to my left, and Alderwoman Finlayson will be arriving soon, but we'll proceed, and hopefully and I'm sure she'll be here before we have to vote on anything, perhaps. At this time, can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda as written.
I'll second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Alrighty. At this time, I will receive a motion to accept the minutes dated March 1st, 2023.
Motion to accept minutes 3/1/23.
Second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. What we'll do is we'll go in order. And the first, we have, maybe I should have postponed that in the agenda. Or can I postpone that legislation when we get to it? Okay. First piece of legislation is a charter amendment, 1-23. Third-party indebtedness and bonds. Engineers can't talk. For the purpose of allowing the City of Annapolis to issue third-party bonds and generally related to city bond authority. We have Director Dickinson here to explain this, and I understand that it's specific to an issue. Could you give us a summary, Director Dickinson, on this?
Yes. Jody Dickinson, Finance Director. This charter amendment establishes a program to allow the city to lend its tax-exempt status to other organizations that want to issue debt. It is a program that is established by the state of Maryland that gives us the authority to do this. By lending our tax-exempt status to another organization, they can do projects that create some economic development in the area or further some other public purpose. And these outside organizations issue debt, build their projects, and they can issue tax-exempt bonds. They use that to pay a lower interest rate on the debt. And as a result, the city gets an administrative fee, small administrative fee, based on a % of the issuance, of the bond issuance. And this charter amendment we developed starting from what the county has, but we had to do some tweaking to make it fit what we wanted to do here. There's 3 different options given for the for the administrative fee, and it just generally allows us to allow those third-party debt to go forward. Every time we do one of these, they're spread out. The last one the city did, I believe, related to St. John's College. I'm sure that was at least a decade in the past. There's still some of that debt outstanding, and so they're not frequent. But when we do them, we can proceed having this policy in place. That said, in each case where we make these arrangements, we have to come to council with a resolution that approves the specific arrangement. So following this, if the council approves this charter amendment that establishes the program, then we can come forward with resolutions for individual developments, agreements. And we do have one pending for the Providence Point development. They would like to use this mechanism to help with their project. That's the only thing that makes this pressing, is that they're on the brink of moving forward with their project. So,
do you have any questions?
my question was going to be, can you give me an example of somebody?
Yeah.
But you said St.
Yeah.
John's did.
St. John's did, and I don't know what the development was because I wasn't here, but they would, for instance, build a building so that they could take on a new program or house more students or something. And we would allow them to use our tax exempt status to issue bonds for that building. And their bonds can therefore pay lower interest rates to the investors who buy the bonds.
And is there any negative impact on the city if they were to default? Or,
No.
I'm not saying that St. John's
The
default.
agreements clearly indicate that the debt is not the debt of the city. The taxpayers are not obligated to pay this. Another term that they use to explain this is conduit debt. And it is used, and we had some when I worked at the county as well. They're just not very common, but we do occasionally do them. And there are, as they sell their bonds and formalize the bond sale, those terms are spelled out in those agreements.
Okay.
And we have legal counsel to represent us as well, to make sure that nothing implicates the city in the repayment of the bonds.
Okay. And do you foresee this charter amendment increasing the use of this?
No, I think it just establishes a standard program. In the past, when St. John's did it, I don't know if it was a part of the code, because right now there's nothing in the code that establishes the program. This sets up the parameters of the program, so that when others come forward, we can do it in accordance with these rules.
Perfect. I appreciate that. Thank you. That's it.
Well, first I want to welcome Alderman Gay in attendance. Director Dickinson, in line with Alderwoman O'Neill's questions, the risk is protected, and
The advantage to us is we get a fee for helping them with this, and the city gets some form of growth or economic development or community program or whatever it is that's used to, that the bond proceeds are used for. So there are some advantages to the city.
And that was my last question. It is under the umbrella of, for lack of a better word, of economic development? Okay.
Yes, and it's typically for a project that's going to create some kind of growth or housing potential, housing need, which is the Providence Point is
And who
going to provide some housing.
evaluates that? Who evaluates that?
Evaluates what?
Whether or not we do it?
Well, that would be the city manager
City manager, okay.
if we go forward. And again, the specific arrangements come to you
Yeah.
by resolution, so you would have the final determination.
Oh, each
of the
one
project.
will be a separate
Yes,
resolution
yes.
coming to us?
So following the establishment of the program, we will be coming to you with a resolution regarding anybody who wants to take advantage of this.
Alderwoman Finlayson has arrived. I told you she'd be here before we have to vote on anything. So just to catch up, I know you were listening intently in your car. I'm kidding. CA 1-23, the first legislative item, third-party indebtedness and bonds.
I do have a question about that one.
Okay, go
Ms.
right
Dickinson
ahead.
and I spoke yesterday. Were you able to find out whether this is impacting Crystal Springs? Was that what you were wondering if?
I don't,
Providence Point, that's.
Providence Point.
Right.
whether or
Also
not it
noted.
affects Crystal Springs?
No, it's now Providence Point. Sorry to interrupt. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
When we spoke yesterday or the day before, you said you weren't sure. Is this the item that you said may have impacted Crystal Springs moving forward?
So when I read the recent story about the decision that was made about the development that was in process here in the city, I had asked whether this would impact Providence Point, and I was told that particular item would not slow the process of that development. They're not completely finished with their application process. Oh, they're closed.
It's only been 10 years, I mean, so surely that's, thank you. I just wanted to make sure this was the same one.
Okay. Do I have a motion? Do you need time?
Motion to give a favorable recommendation to the city council on CA 1-23.
I will second that.
Alrighty, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, favorable recommendation. The next item on the agenda is legislative, and it is dedicated to Alderwoman O'Neill, who, it's a joke, R11-23, the way, just a little background there. When this was brought before us at the last meeting, it didn't make sense that we were waiving fees for city events, and so we separated out those specific events, and the best way of doing that was doing a substitute bill, basically, called Amendment 1, where that is itemized accordingly. So if you look at our 11-23 Amendment 1, dash Tierney, that's where you'll see the revised bill. And you can see on page 2 of 2 where the annual city events are pulled out, which don't necessarily, because this is a resolution to ask, basically to waive fees. There was really no reason to even list those 3 events, but it is a way of seeing how many total events occur in the city. We were debating that, and so that's why it's listed that way. The 3 that are annual city events that are July 4th, New Year's Eve, and Memorial Day.
Thank you for doing that. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you for pointing that out.
I do have a question, Madam Chair,
Of course.
on the process. This is your resolution, so I'm not sure why we're amending your resolution as opposed to withdrawing it. I think we can, and Ms. Berger is here, as opposed to amending the entire piece of legislation, why not withdraw it and introduce the new? It just seems like a convoluted process.
Generally speaking, it does seem like a convoluted process, but remember, the resolution belongs to the council now because it's already been introduced. So
Say
it would
that
have
again,
to-
I'm sorry.
The resolution's already been introduced on first reader, so it belongs to the council now. So it would have to be removed at a council meeting, it probably is just for efficiency purposes to just amend it as a whole, as opposed to removing it and then reintroducing a new resolution that contains what's in the amendment. There isn't really a difference in terms of end goal. I think it's just quicker. And I wasn't the decision maker on that, on the amendment versus withdrawing, but it would have to be withdrawn at the council meeting instead of, at finance committee or something along those lines. So maybe just to sort of speed it along and make sure it gets passed, as opposed to removing and then introducing a new resolution and having it potentially go before any other committee and then get passed. It was more efficient to just sort of substitute out.
That could be done on the same night, though. It could be withdrawn by the council and
If that's
introduced
the will
by
of the council, it could be.
That would expedite it. So, okay, just a different process.
Yeah, thank you for acknowledging that, Alderman Finlayson. I know it was done this way because of the time factor. Some of these events, one of them has already happened, so, but yeah, there's 2 ways of doing it. I agree, I'm used to the other way, but if this works. So, with that, is there a motion on this?
I would make a motion to give a favorable recommendation to.
Sorry, your mic isn't.
Sorry. I would make a motion to give a favorable recommendation to the council on R-11-23.
I'll second it.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. I know Felicia Nolan, our Special Projects Coordinator, thanks you as well. All righty, the next one is R15-23, and I understand that the correlating ordinance, O55-22.
We skip.
Oh, did I skip one? Oh, it's the corresponding resolution to CA 1-23, sorry. R13-23. We probably should have talked about them together. This is the corresponding resolution to introduce the fee that needs to be paid by the third party regarding the bonds issued by the city on their behalf. And
Madam Chair, could we ask the finance director if,
Are you speaking to 1523?
1323.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong part. of the
sorry,
agenda.
yeah, it's the resolution for the Charter Amendment 1-23.
I didn't see, oh, okay, all right. Yes, I mean, this establishes the fees. As you know, the main fee is dependent on the size of the issue, so we can't put it in the fee chart as a fee. It's got to be calculated. And the other fee is the application fee that's added.
So to clarify, it's just an application fee. Questions?
So
An
is this-
application fee, and I believe the wording, let me see what's in there, how it's worded.
Page 2 of 2?
Yeah. Yeah, so the first part of the changes are, explain how the main fee is calculated, but doesn't have amounts in the right column, in the right-hand column. And the application fee then is down below with an amount, the $1,000 for applying.
so we are talking about two different fees.
Yes, if they apply to us for this program, they have to pay us the $1,000 application fee. The other fee, the larger fee, typically the larger fee is dependent on the size of the issue and the terms with which they want to set for paying the fee.
So is that industry standard, the 0.125%?
Yes, it is. I mean, there are other ways they do it, and putting a higher percentage on a different number or a lower percentage on a different number, but this percentage is what the county uses in their program.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman O'Neill?
No questions at this time. Thank you.
My question is this, did we have to get enabling legislation from the county to do this? I probably should have asked that in the ordinance review.
No, enabling legislation comes from the state. It's a program that's established by the state and allows local jurisdictions to
Okay.
put a program in place.
Okay. And then the 0.125 is on the principal, and then the 0.25 is if they refinance?
So there's two different,
Are they
if they issue bonds for a new project,
Yeah,
it's a lower fee because you get this is my theory. There's economic development behind that project, right?
Right.
If they issue bonds to refinance other bonds that already exist, that already did something,
Yeah.
then we charge a higher fee because of that. There's no new growth. There's no new project. There's no new initiative. It's just refinancing something they already
okay.
did.
So they're mutually exclusive, these two?
Those two would be mutually exclusive, and sometimes an organization will issue some bonds for new projects and some bonds to refund old debt, and it allows for a combination of those two.
Got it. Yeah. Okay. At this time, I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I'll recommend a favorable recommendation for R1323.
Second?
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All righty, R15-23, I understand the corresponding ordinance has been postponed, so
Along with the fee schedule.
yeah, along with the fee. So, yeah, I'll accept a motion to postpone review of this then.
Yes, Madam Chair, I sit on the Environmental Matters Committee where the sponsor resides, and he postponed both pieces of legislation until we get further information. So I recommend that we postpone R 1523 also.
Okey doke.
I'll second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Next is Resolution 19-23, which is the fee waiver introduced for the Annapolis Pride Parade and Festival. What we probably should do better on these is to write how they meet the requirements of a fee waiver, because there is a code reference for that. But I do know that, I understand that it was one of the more well-attended events. Maybe it is in all the whereas clauses sort of speak for themselves.
Can I?
Questions?
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. Not necessarily a question. I would say that very similarly to the Irish Parade, St. Patrick's Day Parade, this one has a huge draw from within and outside of the city. In its fifth year as a parade.
It's
Fourth year as a parade. It has continued to grow every year. The economic impact on the city of Annapolis, as far as bringing people staying in hotels and restaurants, I think is only growing. And I think that if, in fairness, we are waiving fees for another also growing entity that has a positive impact on the city, that I would plan to also waive the fees for this particular entity.
Alderwoman.
Yeah, I'm in support of waiving the fees. I think my question is, are we going to have to see one of these for every single event? I thought the intent was to lump them together to say we will waive all of these fees, and then the finance department at the same time can calculate what the loss, I don't want to say lost revenue, but lost fees.
Oh, so once a year, we have a resolution that waives a group of them that are so approved. And then during the year, every year, we have a few that come through that you consider individually. And I believe the other one came first, and this one was submitted later, so it didn't get into the group.
So normally the resolution that has the large group of events are the groups that are the city organized events. And then as each city sort of sponsored or supported, I'm sorry, not sponsored, city supported event, that'll come in resolution by resolution. And so for example, the Pride one is an example of you generally do it one by one, event by event. And then when you get the group of events, those are the city hosted events, like 4th of July, Memorial Day, things along those lines.
So only those events that are strictly city-sponsored events are lumped together?
Supported.
And those that are co-sponsored, for lack of a better description, are the ones that have to be taken individually?
Yeah, and don't quote me on this, but I would imagine it's because you can't guarantee that, let's say the Pride Parade is going to take place in Annapolis on any given year. So I don't know if the sort of the triggering event is when they submit their application or when they get confirmation from the sponsors of the event or the host of the event that the event is taking place in Annapolis. That's when the resolution is drafted. And so that's why I would assume is why they are not sort of lumped together at the beginning of the year in their own separate resolution.
So this
I think there's an easier way.
R-11-23 actually has it listed.
Yeah,
So,
well,
right.
I looked back at that to see
Yeah.
if it was in it, and it
Do you want to
is.
explain, Cynthia? I can.
Yeah, it is, the Pride Parade is in next fiscal year's total list.
It
It
will be.
just simply did not make it into this fiscal year. This is in addition to this fiscal year.
But we've had it for multiple years, so
We didn't waive the fee.
Fees weren't waived.
we did not waive the fees. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Another way of putting it is if you go back to R 11-23, all of those events that are listed as city-supported require a resolution to do so, and then they're rolled into this yearly list to make it easier for the council. So,
I'll add, you don't have to roll them into the list annually. If it's something that you want to consider one at a time, you know, the list, if you're going to waive them, they apply 1 year to waive. Do you list them every year for a waiver? I don't think that's required, right, Carrie?
Supported events?
Yeah, I mean, well, something like these parades, what's the 4th of July events and the St. Patrick's Day events and stuff. You can put them on the list, and they're in general waived for the year
yeah.
in advance, or or you can wait till they apply for it individually. You don't have to put them on the list just because.
Well, it's been Felicia's, she's been special events coordinator since this legislation was written, I think like 5 years ago. So per the Title VI code, she does this list every year of all the events, just so that we know how many events there are. It's just to see them all on one resolution, which is what ironically
Correct.
reviewed,
Correct.
11-23. So they're all listed, itemized correctly.
I was just saying they don't have to all go on that resolution if, like, you waive the fees once, you're going to waive it in
Oh, we don't have to do it
perpetuity.
twice, is what you're saying.
Yeah,
So this is
yeah,
really
you don't
just
have
for-
to do it
I
every
gotcha.
year. They don't have to be grouped and waived every year. It would depend on what they're doing, you know, the timing, whether the council wants to waive.
Right, this is for information only, really, then, is what you're saying, R11. We already reviewed R11-23, but what you're saying is that it's,
So I have a question.
yeah, questions.
I think
So regardless of whether we authorize R 1923 or not, in fiscal year '24, the Annapolis Pride Parade has been already waived if this passes council. Or if our 1123 passes council, they're already waived for next year. We're actually talking about this year because.
Yeah, that is, the issue at
two are
hand,
coming.
exactly. Yeah, we need a fee,
Sorry,
this
sorry.
is the first time we're asking the council for a fee waiver for the Pride Parade.
Right.
That's what's before us.
Well, my question, go ahead, Ms. Berger. you
So,
can answer.
well, this is a little bit, Cynthia just informed me that you guys have already passed as a city council, R 1923 at the last council meeting. So you don't need to make a favorable or unfavorable recommendation as it relates to this legislation because it has already passed.
I think they add, hold on.
R19 is what
No,
we're dealing with right now.
R19, everybody got added as a sponsor.
Yeah, I don't think we voted
So it didn't
on it
pass?
R19 is on our agenda right now.
to,
Let me double check this. Because I believe, I missed that meeting, it wasn't there, but I believe that it was one of those that,
oh, you're right. We suspended the rules.
Suspended the rules
because of the
and passed it.
timeliness.
and it was, the legislation was.
But that was the St.
Had the
Patrick's
referral.
Day parade, that wasn't the Pride Parade.
wasn't
That's
the
not
Pride
timely, that's not till June.
We must have it in the minutes.
I can find it.
While we're looking this
Yeah,
up,
Alderwoman Finlayson, what was your question?
while we're looking this up, Ms. Dickinson, my question has to do with, from a fiscal perspective. If we approve all of these in one fell swoop, then you can determine what the cost of those events would be to the city. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So we can count on
I'm
that.
not saying it doesn't help to put things
Yeah,
on one
yeah.
resolution.
I understand, but I just want to be
Yes,
clear that that
yes.
would be a benefit to know in advance what it's going to cost to put on
Yes,
all of these
yes.
events.
And I wasn't, my statement was just to say, if you waive something this year, it doesn't have to go on that group resolution
Right.
the following year. You could decide, no, we'll do this event one by one by one and not blanket approve it for the following year. That was the reason for my comment.
Right. We're just in a unique situation with the fact that we're talking about the two resolutions, 11 and 15 and 19, at this very same time, where one is for fiscal year 24 and the other one is for fiscal year 23.
Ask for it to do it.
Do we have a,
So, Madam Chair, you asked for this to come to the Finance Committee at the last meeting.
we did not.
I believe we just passed on the
That's
first
what the
reader
notes
at the
say.
last
Okay,
meeting.
so we are confusing it with whatever parade
Yes.
that was.
But this is R19 we're talking about. And it is, I mean, we still have 2 months, so it's not like, I think it was the Pride Parade, not the Pride, St. Patrick's Day Parade that was of a timely nature last week.
Is that correct, Kayleen? Did we suspend the rules we did it twice?
It doesn't say the rules were suspended.
Yeah.
for-
But did we approve it on third reader?
It's on the
Or
5th of
second?
March.
No.
This is R19 now.
R4, R12, and.
I don't have the
Well, one second.
minutes in front of me.
So R19 was not, R19 was referred, but it was not approved.
No,
Yeah.
it just says acting chair Tierney referred to the finance committee.
So it's timely now.
Yeah.
All that to say.
All righty.
That makes sense.
Did you say you were talking to Felicia or?
No,
who were you
Cynthia.
talking- Oh, Cynthia. Oh, okay. All righty. Where were we? I don't think there's, we're in
Favorable
discussion.
recommendation.
Is it on the floor? A motion?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to give a favorable recommendation to R1923.
I'll second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And I will get back to you on R11-23 because I think there's a code reference. I was trying to multitask here on why we do that, or we've been doing that.
Maybe I can clarify, are you talking about why you guys put in a resolution the city organized events?
Supported events.
R11-23, for example, why do we do that? That list is what.
Which part of the list? Because it's separated into the city supported events and then the city
Correct.
organized events.
City
The
supported.
city supported events are because you're waiving the fees
Right.
that are associated with those events. The city organized events are, you guys are recognizing as a council that it is a city organized event for that year. So that's why every year by resolution, there's the list of the St. Patrick's, or not St. Patrick's Day. Now it's all blending together. Maybe it is St. Patrick's Day, actually. But Memorial Day, 4th of July, New Year's Eve, that's all contained on one resolution because that's the city organized events. And it's the council acknowledging we are organizing these events and they are to take place. And it's not waiving fees because the city is putting on the event. And then in order to waive the fees associated with the city supported events, that requires a resolution as well. But it does not require one resolution containing a list, or you can do it however you want. It can be several resolutions as, the year goes on, or it can, if you are aware that those events are to take place, you can group them together. But it both require legislation, but for somewhat different reasons. I don't know if that clarifies it or answers the questions that you guys had, but that's why, R11 is a little bit different because it is combining the two separate city organized and city supported, which you don't generally do, but it's not improper by any means.
Right, we chose to do that just so that you could see a list of all of the events. You're right, that resolution only is for the city-supported events, which I think that list is required in the code, but I'm not sure.
Madam Chair, I recall when the committee was created, chaired by your predecessor, as a matter of fact, to delineate the types of events that we were having in the city. And it's become convoluted, to say the least. And I think Ms. Berger has just made it clear that we should have two lists, even in the same legislation. One that is city-sponsored events, meaning it is our event, we pay the full freight, et
City
cetera.
organized.
And the other is city-supported events where we're willing to waive certain fees for the event. We're partners in the event. Am I characterizing that
Yes, I mean, that's my understanding is there have been changes over the years to the special events legislation where the end goal was to distinguish between the two types of events that take place in the city, whether it's organized, put on by the city is sort of the sole host, versus city supported, and that includes the waiving of fees for, trash pickup, police, fire, things like that. And both of those require legislation through the council. It's just for different reasons, because the city supported events, and they all blend together, are the ones where you're waiving fees, versus the city organized events where we as a city are putting it on.
And I might add that one of the reasons for the original forming of the committee was the number of events that we were having. And there was some concern from the downtown community that there were too many events. Obviously, that's no longer a concern because the number of events has grown. But so there was a twofold purpose for it, but it did codify the difference between the two different types of events.
Yeah. There is, correct, the genesis of this was the concern of events at City Dock, and Ms. Nolan still follows the code. There still can only be a X number, and this, I think we're maxed out right now. I don't want to overkill this, but
Too late.
isn't our 17-23 exactly what you're saying, is that it is a list of all the events for the public to know?
11-23, not 17.
Our 11-23 is a list of all the events, so the public will know how many are occurring per the special events legislation. And it is itemized by city-supported versus city events. So you could say it's informational, but it's set up that way. Those are the events.
Right.
All righty. Any questions?
No, we beat this death.
Poor Felicia.
Well, Felicia's been we've supported her every inch
Yeah.
of the way, so
Yeah.
this is not an
Yeah.
attack on her at all. I'm
No,
sure
no.
it's to-
We went, yeah, I think
you
this
know,
is
so.
the way she's been doing it for a while, so. All right.
Do we gonna vote on our 19? We did vote on it?
Yeah,
Oh,
we
okay.
did, and then we-
So long ago, I forgot. I mean,
know.
really?
I know.
Okay.
So we're all set for events in 2024 and in 2023. So finally, we just have a update by the finance director, Ms. Dickinson. Do you have anything to?
As you know, at the audit committee meeting,
Yeah.
the ACFR for fiscal year '22 was presented by the external auditors. They talked about that and their single audit report and their communications to those charged with governance. And that the audit committee could not make a final motion to accept it because of the quorum issue, right?
Oh, I know.
Yeah, so that has to be considered and accepted
At the next
at the
meeting.
next meeting.
Yeah.
So that's done, and we're glad to have that behind us. The budget is underway, and that's where Katie and Capri and I have been spending all of our time. And we're in the final processes of pulling all the numbers together and talking to the city manager and the mayor about the budget so that we can prepare a book and a piece of legislation for council.
Questions?
No questions.
Could I just add, because you're being very humble, that at the audit committee, the auditors, this is the first time they've audited the city. This is a new auditor, and they reviewed everything, and it was pretty favorable, except for the one,
Yeah. Yeah, the internal control report has a material weakness for something that was an older issue that we cleaned up this year.
Yeah.
Well, may I ask, will we have an opportunity to hear the full report from them before the full council?
So at this point in time, that typically goes to the audit committee, but you can, if you want to hear them, I have to schedule that with them, and we could get, they wouldn't mind coming and presenting it to you.
I think I would like to make that request. Traditionally, the auditors have come before us, before the full council, so I think we should have that opportunity.
Okay, so not probably in the last couple of years, I think we've done it with the audit committee, but before that, it's possible that they came to the full
Oh,
council.
yeah.
I think the intent was that was the objective of the audit committee to replace the review of the city council. So it's a presentation that's public on their file.
Well, but that wasn't an acceptable choice in lieu of going before the full council. That was an option, but not one that we made.
Yeah, I can't speak for the chair.
No, and I'm not, it wouldn't be the chair's choice as to whether the full council would hear the audit report. But I'm just asking if we can schedule a time when the auditors can come before the full council.
So I
In a
would
work
work
session.
then with Cynthia and Regina and see what the best, if you wanted it at a work session or if you wanted it at a regular council meeting, that type of thing,
Yeah.
and get it on the schedule.
We've done it in both ways, but whatever is most convenient, and not to hold up the audit committee's recommendation.
Okay,
Of course, who's on the, only those on the audit committee can vote in the audit committee, so. But not to hold up their vote on it.
okay, I'm just saying, we'll be glad to come and present if that's what the council decides, and I'm not the person to facilitate the schedule, so if you can work with the Office of Law and get that on
Okay.
the schedule, so that I can tell the auditors some dates, some possible dates, or work session dates, if that's the way you decide you want to do it.
Ms. Berger, could you facilitate that for us through the law office?
I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention. I will be 100%
How
honest.
dare you not
I was
pay
looking at my email. What is it? What
To
is it that you would like me
facilitate any legal issues around them presenting to the full council.
And so what I was referring to was they want the auditors have presented to the audit committee. She would like to have it at the full council session.
Oh, so like a work session?
Either.
Does it need to be a
and
closed
so-
session?
It doesn't matter to me.
Okay.
It's a courtesy, we can do it either way,
All right,
work
so-
session, full meeting, whatever. It's just, I don't schedule that, so I recommended that the clerk. and-
Caitlin, myself, or Cynthia will talk to Regina and make sure it gets on, because I don't know what the work session schedule is. So we'll make sure that between the three of us, that someone in the office sets it up for a work session. And then if it needs to be changed and turned into a closed session, which if they've already presented publicly to the audit
Yeah, they
committee, it shouldn't have to necessitate going into a closed session, but that can always be worked out if necessary. But we'll anticipate it being a work session.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to say I do disagree with that. That was the whole purpose of the audit committee per code section, per their code. Their job is to review the auditor, and then they report to the city council. So that's why it hasn't been done in the last couple of years. So it's it's not my call, but it's not really fair to the auditors because they're presenting twice when the structure now is that the audit committee reports to the city council.
Madam Chair, you have every right to disagree.
Yep.
And I likewise will insist that we have a presentation from the auditors. And as an alderman, I have the right to do that.
It is on file. There's a tape in the audit committee. It's, what is it, a YouTube video where you could watch it, but that's why it is, it's public now. Alrighty. Anything else? Alderman Gay, did you want to come up and say anything?
Captain McGee have anything to say?
What's that?
I was talking to Kaylin.
Okay.
He's just watching.
All right. I have a motion.
Madam Chair, Captain McGee is here. Oh, okay.
He's just watching.
Yeah, he's okay. All right. At this time, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye.